All right, round one from Gibraltar Chess Festival. And this game is between I am Sodoma, international master Sodoma, versus French number one GM Maxime Vachier-LaGrave. LaGrave, gotta say it like that, right? The French Vachier-LaGrave. Uh, okay, I like these first round games because you get to see the top players in the world versus, just international masters and FIDE master, usually 3 or 400 um, points below. And you know that for a player, that never gets to play these top players, that's probably an exciting moment. And so you get to see some good chess, and you also get to see the contrast and the levels, you know, um, of this chess world. So Sodoma started out with d4. Vachier-Lagrave played knight f6, knight f3, g6. G6 is a good move, and I know that Vachier-Lagrave likes to play the Grunfeld anyway, but g6 is a great move just, for your information against people that like to play like these London systems and Kali systems and things like that. The fianchetto of the bishop against, these type of systems is wonderful. Check the statistics. That's put that in your repertoire. If people like to play the Kali system and stuff like that against you. Fianchetto and the bishop is great against that stuff. Okay, so this game with G6, uh, Sodoma played G3. So basically, they're off the map, so to speak, off the grid as far as theory is concerned, and this can work both ways. I mean, uh, if you're a better player, then that skill, the queen rises to the top, then you should be able to outplay your opponent from an innocuous position. However, if that opponent is stronger than you, then he probably will win anyway, and maybe you're better off sticking with theory, but who knows? But perhaps this is something that this guy specialized in. But again, you see that the position is highly symmetrical and probably between two top GMs. Say if Nakamura and Caruana were playing this, or Carlson and Vachier-Lagrave, this would probably be a draw. But you got about 400 points rating difference, so you're about to see what happens. So again, what can you say? Symmetrical, symmetrical, symmetrical. White still has the advantage of the first move. So he attacks the center. Vachier-Lagrave takes. Knight a3. And he won't let this knight come here and then end up there. So he just gives the pawn back by playing c3. B takes c3. c5. And again, just playing on these principles. Again, Vachier-Lagrave's a Grunfeld player, and it looks like a Grunfeld, and I'm sure he's very comfortable in this position. He attacks the center right away. The simple principle is that when you allow your opponent to occupy the center, that you definitely have to be ready and prepared to fire at the center as much as you can. Counterattack, counterattack, counterattack before he can stabilize the center, stabilize and support his pawns in the center. Then he will have an advantage. So right now you see Vachier-Lagrave doing what he does. So e3. This creates a kind of rigidity to the center. It's solid, but again, solid and immobile is not good all the time. Because when your pawns become immobilized, then they become targets shortly after that. Okay, so knight c6, and we see the continued build up. Knight c4. So now the knight is forced to do something. And notice how when Vachier-Lagrave pushed that pawn to c3, it took away that basically, the idea that white had to capture the pawn and then leap. So it kind of left the knight hanging. So now he has to use time to bring the knight into play. Bishop e6, just simply attacking the piece. Queen E2, Rook C8. Again, it's a semi-closed position, and it's always important in closed positions to try to be as sure as possible where your breaks are gonna come, so that you can find an open file for the rooks. And of course, most of the times in this opening, this Grunfeld, you see this C pawn exchanging itself for the D pawn at one time, leaving the open C file. So putting the rook on C8 is a good bet. Knight Fe5. So we see also the rook getting off the diagonal also, but then we see a little threat here to ruin black's pawns. Good move, takes care of the threat, and makes a little threat of his own to capture on C3. Bishop D2, and now we see knight takes E5, knight takes E5. Again, another threat to win a pawn here. The knight goes back to D3. He's threatening. And we see a fierce battle in the center right now. Nice move by LaGrave. So now this knight can't move because of the pin here. Knight F4. So it does move, but I'm sorry. Let me say that again. The knight couldn't move because of the pin. What I meant to say and should have said is it can't move to where it wants to move, which is to C5. So it could have went, for instance, it could have went back to C1, but I meant it couldn't go to where it originally intended to go because of the pin. So check that. So knight F4 took place. Alright, so after knight F4, black goes into a comfortable ending. So knight takes E2 is played, and rook FD8. So the rooks are finally placed, and the game looks pretty equal. Black is comfortable, but what I would say is that these pawns, again, the rigidness of these pawns, making this bishop bad on D2 gives black a slight advantage. Okay, black is just a little bit better placed here. Rooks developed. His pieces look, you know, all of his pieces are better than their counterparts on the white side. You know, perhaps save this bishop right here. Bishop on G2 looks pretty good. The rest of the pieces are not as good as their counterparts on the black side. So rook FC1. B6. I like this move because Maxime is he just keeps the tension in the position. Of course, he would love black to make, white to make a move like that. You know, just creating some weakness in the in his pawns. So he just keeps the tension in the position. A4. And now some good maneuvering by Vachier-LaGrave. So knight F6. And the idea is to put this bishop right here on this nice blockade square with the attack on this knight right here. Now notice the state of the center, right? He played E4, bishop C4, attacking that. Oops, sorry. You see in black, black is winning some material there. So it's all about that center. He can't play E4. He wants to be able to mobilize these pawns, and the lack of mobility of those pawns creates problems in with the rest of his pieces. Bishop c4. So this is like a gradual, he's gradually getting cooked here. It's getting squeezed, getting outplayed gradually. Look at the pieces. So bishop f1. Now he hits the center again. See, this hurts right here because remember I told you the center was like kind of rigid. Like he can't really advance, or like it looks good, right? That's why I say a lot in my videos that being solid with no prospects is the worst, because all it means is that you're gonna lose in 50 or 60 moves instead of losing in 30 moves. You gotta have prospects in the position. Like you can't always wait for play. See, one method, like sometimes players style they try to adopt is play super solid, right, and passive, and just kind of depend on their opponent to overreach and make mistakes. And I guess that works sometimes, like with lower rated chess players and such. But if you're playing like somebody's real strong, like a master or something like that, and you play just solid without prospects, he'll just continue to play good moves, build the position, and then you'll end up losing games without fully understanding why you lost the game or how you lost the game, because your position was so solid, right? And then now all of a sudden he has like a pass pawn or something, or your position just collapses all of a sudden. And it's because of playing like in this style right here. You see White's position didn't really look bad out of the opening, but as you can see, right, the last 10 moves or so, the position is deteriorated. This is because Black has been playing actively with the plan, where White has just been trying to be solid, basically just trying to hold things together. And so the first thing he did was allow his center to become demobilized. And so once that happened, I already knew those were the first cracks in the foundation, because after demobilization comes comes the all-out attack against the center, and that's what you see. You saw c5 early, and now you see e5, and you see the pieces landing on squares around those demobilized pawns, like c4. You see e4, right, totally uncontested now, right? And now Vachier-LaGrave is able to just put a pawn on e5 on prise, because it doesn't matter if White takes it. Let's keep going. So f3. Now you know something is wrong. Good move by LaGrave. He had choices. I mean, he could have played knight d5 if he wanted to with the attack here. Good move right here. Right, just take it. He's taking over the square, taking over the e4 square totally. F takes, knight takes. Look at that, full blockade. You know I love to talk about blockades. Right, these pawns are weak. Knight f4. Bishop takes. King takes. Look at that, now he just switches his focus to the backward pawn. King e2. Knight f6. Just revealing, right, the weakness. Bishop f2, and this bishop has been horrible the whole game. Rook c d8. Now you got the opposition. I'm always talking about this, right, in the videos, opposition. So of course there's tactics lurking, against this pawn to take here twice, and this pawn won't be able to rescue the king. Rook d1. g5. See, that's a good move to have. Look at that, just drives the knight back. See, if you didn't have a great position, you can't make moves like g5. But Black's position is so strong in the center. Remember, I'm always talking about center and in the flank attack. His position is so stable in the center that he can start operating on the flank. So he plays g5. Why? Because White doesn't have any central response. He can't move. You see, so even though And this is a good example of the hypermodern ideas. Black doesn't have one pawn in the what we call the sweet center, which is these squares. This is like your, there's different names for it, of course, but take that away. Black doesn't have one pawn in the sweet center of the board. Yet he controls e4 and d5, and he keeps white from being able to advance. So it's almost like he has invisible pawns there, right? This creates a scenario where, for all intents and purposes, the center is locked. None of these pawns can move without loss of material. So therefore, the center, in theory, is fixed. This gives black the authority to be able to play a move like g5. There's no counterattack coming in the center. The knight gets knocked back, and now his knight returns, with the threat. So rook ac1, f5. So now you had the classic outpost situation, right? So you got the knight, right, in the outpost. You got the assistant, the pawn at f5, and then you got the rook here. Okay. h3, and white is just holding on for dear life at this point. Bishop f8. So Vachier-LaGrave understands that these pawns are not going to move anytime soon, so this bishop is kind of biting on granite. So it's kind of like, okay, how can I, use this piece here? King moves over, and there you have it. The bishop decides to come to d6 and attack in a different way. Knight e1, g4, h takes, f takes g4, and I hope you can see why king g4 is not a good move. I won't even say why. That's something you can look at that. You could pause the video if you want to. You can pause the video right here and try to figure out why king g4 does not work. Okay, so king g2 was played, and c4 by Maxime, and this is like the culmination of the strategy, the hypermodern strategy playing against the pawn center. The pawns have become strict liabilities in the position. They confer no benefit whatsoever on the white position. Okay, it's a big liability. Okay, it's like buying a piece of property and then finding out that there's radioactive waste under the the foundation. It's useless. Nobody wants it. Property value is zero, and you're just stuck with the property, right? Unless you can do something drastic to fix it. So we see here the knight, the bishop's concentrated on this square, keeps this bishop forces this bishop to stay forever passive. This knight has nowhere to go except to c1. These rooks are horrible, so every piece in the game is horrible for white. So it's a matter of finishing it off now. So rook c2, again, that's a move that says, hey, I don't really have nothing to do, because that rook can't really go anywhere either because the pressure here. So now with everything blockaded, you got the open file. Why not double up? Okay, rook b1, rook f6. There it is. Real obvious plans, Again, two passive rooks versus the two aggressive rooks. And again, tactics always prevail. When you get your opponent just bent over backwards like that, look for the tactical blow, because it's there. Believe me, for real. Look for it, because it's got to be there. That's just how chess works. That's how the geometry of chess works. When you have your opponent, these pieces are this bad. Look for those tactical blows. Look for opportunities to sacrifice and such, because those, don't just trade off all the time. Like knight. Play a move like knight takes. I mean, you could play that, and that's how bad this position is. You could trade off and still win, but look for the tactical blows. And Vachier-LaGrave plays it, and it's all based on the back rank being weak here. At this point, Sodoma resigned. I'll just show you a little variation. For instance, if he takes bishop takes g3, not rook f1 right away, but just bishop takes g3, attacking this knight. This knight is a problem, is on prise. So if he protects it with, say, rook e2, that wins the knight. You got two pieces attacking the knight. If he plays this, knight g2, then it's checkmate. Okay, so that's where the back rank weakness comes into play at. So, just solid game by Vachier-LaGrave, and just again showing the difference in class, and level. And again, that's probably would have happened to many players. I'm not putting this game out there so to make fun of the guy with the white pieces, but just to show how good these top 10 players are when they get to play, quote unquote non-professional players. So I hope you enjoyed that game. I hope you learned a lot, because we definitely spoke about the center, what happens when it becomes immobilized, and we saw basically the hypermodern theories in full effect this game. So like I say, support, comments below, and please subscribe. I'll see you on the next video.